Welcome to a very special How It Works with Holger. You might have seen it online. I was quoted recently by Embarcadero, and I said that iOS development has gotten significantly easier with the latest version of Delphi Alexandria 11.2. And the number one reason is if you have a Mac that has the new Apple Silicon processor, you can use the simulator again. And that really is a major enhancement of what we were able to do before because you don't need the real device anymore. You can test your software on the simulator. And what you see here right now is my Windows virtual machine. It is inside or it is run on a Mac with Apple Silicon processor. And that makes it very, very easy, this setup, to develop applications for iOS. And of course, if you want to build a application for Android at the same time with FireMonkey, there is nothing in the way to do that. Of course, at the same time, you just change the target. But this video here is specifically designed for iOS to show off the new features. Because right here, if I drag it over, you see the new, I've selected here the iPhone 13 Pro simulator. It's actually, this is an iOS 16 that I run on my Mac because I'm also an Apple developer. I have an Apple developer account. And that is still a necessity, and I won't go into the details of that. Of course, you need to have still the Apple developer account. You need to have your Mac system set up properly. However, it has gotten really, really simple compared to how difficult it was back in the day, as I say. So just looking at the console of the Mac, so don't get confused, even though you might be seeing this is a Mac window, and this is also running on the Mac. This is the iPhone simulator running on the Mac, and this, as soon as I click this, the other windows disappear because the virtual machine is on top of those. So the terminal right here, if you install the PA server from Embarcadero, which you find if you go to Drive C, Program Files, x86, of course, you can see this is definitely a Apple Silicon because this is Windows for ARM. And we keep going, Embarcadero Studio 22, and then the PA server right here. And there is the package file that you drag over to your Mac, double click it, and run the installation. That's all you need to do in order to be able to, on the terminal, you can type applications, and then you find the PA server right there, and PA server 22 app, and then there you need to go into the contents, Mac OS, and then PA server is the command. Now we already have the platform assistant server started. I don't want to use any password, and available commands gives us the one that it helps us to print the available IP addresses. So you can see the IP address 11 is the one for the host system, and that is the one that I need to specify inside of Delphi. So to get started, first of all, what are we going to build? We're going to build something a little bit more complex than just a hello world. We're going to build a iPhone application that shows a map, and on this map we're going to place points of interest in the area that I'm located in right now. I prepared the database and everything. It's also the same database that I use in my TMS Web Core book. It includes all the points of interest in Lee County in Southwest Florida in the US. The database is prepared, multiple formats. So the SQLite is the original database. To make it easier, I saved it as JSON. And that JSON we can load directly into a memory dataset inside of our application. And the advantage of that is that our data is immediately bundled inside of that application. You might think, whoa, that's a biggie. I can do that. I need to load it from a file from the... of course, you can do that all. The point of this video is to show you how to get started with it, or to show how easy it has become. So we start Red Studio. Then I'm going to do File, New, Multi-Device Application for Delphi. We'll start with a blank application. And now we can already run the tests. This is literally for a hello world. This is all what you need. So you take a standard button and make it a little bit bigger, but you don't need to. You can actually say, with regards to control type, platform. So the platform renders the button, which I prefer. I don't want my buttons drawn like they look on Windows. I want like my buttons on Android to look like on Android, and on iOS like they're supposed to look on iOS. Double click, and then show message, hello world. That's all we want to do at first. So File, Save As, Live. The data directory is already created. I'm going to create another source directory. And then this is the main form, so U form main. And we also need to save the project. Save project as, I don't know why I didn't pick Save All. So Lee County Schools, that's it. Save. And of course we need to change the target to Mac, not Mac OS, but iOS Simulator ARM 64-bit. I double click, and I've done this before. I've set this up before. So if I go to Tools, Options, and then we find in deployment, we find the SDK manager. You see I've added them all, and it is iPhone OS 16.0 and iPhone Simulator 16.0. So it really is iOS 16, and I added the template for that. So let me remove that. Delete. Yes. Save. And let's run this and see what happens. So now we need to specify again the profile. So the profile is my host that I've just shown you right here. IP address 11. Let's move this right here into the corner somehow. Let's see if that is possible with the limited resolution available. So right here. And then the SDK version that is being found is iPhone Simulator 16.0. I make this a selected SDK. Okay. And then I always say yes to all. And with that, the local file cache is being updated. This has gotten very fast. Back in the day, this took a long time. Even though it's 94 items, for whatever reason, at some point it gets really, really fast and speeds up. I'm still going to stop talking and will let the process do its thing and cut the video at this point. And immediately when this dialog closes, it launches the simulator, and because I'm working in a virtual machine, the simulator is being started on the host system. And I can just drag the simulator over. As you see, the funny thing that happened, and I was just stunned. Yesterday, Apple released a new release candidate of Xcode 14. And as you can see, this is an iPhone 14. It started the iPhone 14 simulator. I mean, we don't even have the actual device yet. This is recorded on September 9th. Pre-order open today. But this is a simulator for iPhone 14 with iOS 16, and it runs perfectly on the new Delphi. And I can move my 13 that I used for the previous tests before recording this video. So I guess we use an iPhone 14 because it's the newest and brightest, right? So clicking on the button right here, and we see Hello World. It works. So there is no compatibility issue with the new device, iPhone 14. However, you can select any device you want. You can select any of the other devices that are installed on the Mac system. This is something, if you told your Mac, get rid of certain simulators, they won't appear here. But for example, you just saw I have the iPhone 13, I have the iPhone 14 already because it's the Xcode 14 release candidate that's installed on the system. And with that, we can start developing the real application that we want to develop in order to show the points of interest on a map. So let's do the database fancy stuff first. Get rid of the button on the form. We rename the form, of course, to form main. And then we get rid of the button click event as if we started anew. And FireDeck has the FD mem table, which is a table in memory, and that allows us at design time. That is what a few Delphi developers miss all the time. At design time, we can say load from file, and I go into my data directory and say I want all files, and I select the POI JSON file. And believe it or not, I can even edit the data set inside of the IDE if I wanted to. I'm not going to see that much because by default, everything is a white string or a white memo because I use the SQLite database as the source, but that is not going to be affecting anything for our demo. The key thing here is we have the name of the place and we have the longitude and latitude. So these are the three that we're going to use in order to place items on the map. What am I going to use for map? Well, there is no better component package, in my opinion, than FNC Maps to do all that, because FNC Maps is available for VCL and FireMonkey, and even for the web using TMS Web Core. So just using FNC Maps makes sense. And FNC Maps is a wrapper around about different mapping services that are available. So if I drop this on the form, I still have to get used to FireMonkey, I'm honest, that it sometimes is a little bit sluggish when it comes to components that are being dropped on the form, because this map is always going to be over the control. So in a real-time project, you might consider dropping the mem table in a data module and referencing that. Just for simplicity, I chose the shortcut here. So by default, it is set to Google Maps. So the providers that are available are Google, Bing, Azure, here, Mapbox, MapKit. MapKit is Apple, OpenLayers, and TomTom. So if you don't want to get into any subscription package with any of the providers, just select OpenLayers. Boom. There you go. That's all you need to know, or all you need to do. You have your map, and it displays an OpenLayers map in your application. And if you think, wow, that's great, but what am I going to do with it? Well, let me show you. So we say alignment, AL client. We're going to name this map. I'm saving this, and I'm going to deploy this again, or I'm going to run the application on the iPhone 14 simulator. The SDK, of course, is already imported. And if you follow the installation process of FNC Maps, everything will be set up. So it's literally drop the component, run, and we should be able to see the map inside of the iPhone simulator. Here we see the application being installed and wonderful full screen or a map. I am on the device here, so this is what you have to believe me, that I'm really recording on a virtual machine on Windows, and this is the simulator. I can just drag it out of the visible area of the recording area and now drag it back in from my Mac. So this is, you can even rotate the device, a full-blown iOS 16 application. And believe me, I'm a fan of Swift UI, but this kind of stuff, you can't do it as quickly as with Delphi. Just dropping a couple of controls and then running the application, and that's it. And you can be certain that this will look exactly like this on the device. And Of course, it works with the interaction of the map. So that's that. So let me switch over to Google. How would you do that? Well, you go to Services on the map, of course. First select the map. You go to Services. And then you switch over to Google. And in order to use Google, you need an API key. You create an API key with Google. For developers, mostly this is free, but don't take my word for it. Holger said it's free on how it works with Holger. Dear Google, no, that's not going to work. Please check the terms and conditions from Google and Google Maps and the associated APIs before you use it. I have never paid anything for my testing and anything as a developer. However, Google changes terms and conditions frequently, so be aware what packages you enable. TMS has documentation of what you need to do in order to get the correct keys. Another place to go if you have questions about FNC maps is flixengineering.com/books, and then select your Amazon store. For example, here, let's pick Germany, and I would like FNC maps. Go to order page. I have written a book that is completely dedicated to, completely dedicated to FNC maps. So this is where you get all the functionality of what you can do with FNC maps. This is the book that teaches you everything about FNC maps that you can also use in your VCL applications. So the book mostly shows VCL and web applications. However, with Delphi 11 and FireMonkey, it's also possible to use these things that I show in that book on your iPhone or Android device. The key, I've generated one, and I will copy that now from my Notes application on the Mac. So give me a second. So right here, it's in the clipboard. I'm going to paste it right now. This is incomplete, I know. It's intentional. And now, as soon as I enter the API key, I get the full map in Google, or from Google, I should say. So if I redeployed this application now, I could use Google Maps inside of my application. And let's go back to the database that we added to this form. Going to FD mem table. Let me name the mem table just data. Let's keep it simple. And let's see if I can put this into the background or something. Flip position. Control send to back, maybe. Nope, it's not willing to. So I'm going to resize this control if the designer lets me. Okay, and then I'm going to add as code map.align t-align layout. So t-align layout dot client. So I have to list the enumerable type. So if I run this application when the form is created, the map alignment is restored. But for us here, I can now use the visual controls much easier. Perfect. So data, I already added the data, and the fields are not added yet. I could add the fields if I wanted to. The key is that the data is bundled with the application. So this data is also deployed on the device. Why? Because it's part of your DFM file. It's part of the former FMX file, as it is called in FireMonkey. So I can simply open this and iterate all the records and add a marker for each of the point of interest on the map. So what we don't do this when the form is being shown. We don't do this when the form is being created. No, we do this, and this is something you learn in my FNC map book. You do it when the map is ready, because the map needs to be downloaded from a server, and this might take longer than your form being created or your form being shown, and you can't interact with a map before it has been fully initialized. And for that, you have an event. It is called onMapInitialized, and we open that. And I always say add POIs, add point of interest. So procedure, add POIs. And that is going to use data. We're going to iterate data. And then we say data.open. So we open the FD-mem table. Don't close it, because I think if you close it, the data is being cleared as well. I'm not sure about that, but I think that's how it is. And then we do while data.eif equals false, do begin. And of course, we want to iterate all the information, so we say data.next. Everything happens on the map, and why this happens, considering these are over 1,000 points of interest, we don't want the map to be updated and marker being added, map being updated, point being added, map being updated, kind of like the data set, same thing. So what you can do is, you can say map, which is the FNC map, and you can say begin update. Then you just have to make sure when you do that, that you also try finally that you also call map and update, because otherwise you'll never see these changes and our while loop goes inside. So like here, Control KI. I'm old fashioned. I still use the old Turbo Pascal indentation shortcuts. And with that, we need to read the latitude, longitude, and then add the marker to the map. So if you go to map, you really have add marker. And you can either choose the coordinate record type, which is a special type of FNC maps, or you just pass two double numbers. One is the latitude, the first one, and the second one is the longitude. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to pass the latitude, the longitude, and that's it. So we say add marker. And what is the latitude? It's data field by name, latitude, then as float. No idea why it's not called as double or something. Field by name, longitude as float, and that's it. Of course, you want to make sure if you call this twice, I mean, we make sure that we don't do that, but still, you can say map markers.clear, because the markers are a list of markers. The final thing to do is, you saw that the map by default shows as New York City in the United States, and that is a wonderful default location, but we actually want to show a viewpoint that gives us an overview of all the markers that we've added. And we can do that very, very simply or easily with FNC maps, because you can say zoom to bounce. And the key thing is that you need to get the bounce of your marker array that you've added. So you say zoom to bounce, and if you go map markers dot, I didn't say it's a t-string list, I said it is a list of markers. And there you can say to coordinate array. And this map to bounce actually is able to basically use this as all it needs to zoom the map exactly to the area that affects all your markers. This is very helpful if you have a certain location, that you have certain markers. If you have a project where you did certain things, you can zoom that in that way really, really easily. It's not that helpful. Let's say you have one marker in the United States and the other marker in Japan and the other marker in Germany. Literally, you're going to see the whole Earth that way. So then it's not that helpful. But for our use case, because Lee County is a certain area of Florida in the United States, so that literally gives us a viewpoint of Lee County, Florida, if everything works. So with that, we're already done, believe it or not. So this adds all the points of interest in Southwest Florida, Lee County. Let's run this. From experience, if you see this, that the create launch screen file cannot be created and it fails, the only thing you need to do, close this, the troubleshooting, because that is incorrect. You go to your simulator and press Command Q on your simulator. Then the only thing you can do is you can close the project, open the project again, and then launch again. And this time it will work. It's a tiny little bug at release. I'm certain they will fix it. But you see, after that, it works just perfectly. And you're still faster than doing this in Xcode and in Swift or any other language that you're not as used to as Delphi. So poof, there we go. Those are all the points of interest. And as I told you, it's over 1,000. So if we go here, let's see, down here, for example, Bonita Beach, there's all the different beach resorts, beach access, all the beach accesses are, and this is the nice thing. Of course, Google has these points of interest too. So the database that I extracted them from is a public database. So this is beach access number 7, beach access number 8. And of course, these match. So you see that FNC Maps actually adds them at the correct location. And let's go here. Whoosh. Yeah. So that's definitely the beach. And of course, FNC Maps also supports Street View and all the associated technologies that you may encounter with Google Maps and all the other mapping services. So let's go back. And our markers are still here. So our markers won't get lost no matter what you do. If you like go here to the dog park, poof, right there. That's the dedicated beach where you can go with dogs. So Street View works fine. And the marker is even visible, as you can see right here, inside of Street View. So there's full support with FNC Maps for all of that. But the key thing to remember is look at the time, how much time we spent in order to build this. I mean, this is a database that uses over 1,000 records. We use the technology, or we use the language skills that we've had for years. We can still use our field by name and T data, as I refer to it, the T data source world. We can still use that, iterate our records, and that kind of stuff. If you want to learn more, in my book, you also learn like to use stuff like adding titles to your markers, changing the icon. Right now we just have the red drop point there. You can change these all and that kind of stuff. And of course, FNC Maps also supports directions and much more, like painting on the map, overlays on the map. And this is all usable on iOS, on the Apple Silicon, with Delphi 11 inside of the simulator. And that makes it such a great development experience. I know there was one tiny little bug still in there, that it sometimes does not deploy to the device without you restarting the simulator and closing and reopening the project. However, that is still no biggie considering, and this is something I want to point out, this is recorded on September 9th, 2022, and I'm simulating an iPhone 14. The real device is not available yet. First devices ship in the United States on September 16. This is iOS 16, meaning that we use a release candidate of Xcode on the underlying Apple system, and it already works with Delphi 11 Alexandria. I hope you liked this video. If you like it, give us a thumbs up, and if you have questions or comments, please let us know. And always, if you have questions about FNC Maps, don't hesitate to contact TMS at support@tmssoftware.com.